Hey, I'm Nick Williams with Medicare Millionaire. In this video, I'm going to talk about penalties. Penalties for Part D, Part B, and Part A late enrollment into Medicare. And it's important that you, as the agent, understand these penalties because you'll see your clients making mistakes that will be very costly to them. So you need to step in and stop them from making these mistakes. First of all, Part D penalties are the most common penalty that you'll see a client incur. That's when they fail to enroll in Medicare Part D after their initial enrollment period for a period of 63 days or more, then any time thereafter for a period of 63 days or more. And I guess they have 63 days because that gives any Medicare beneficiary at least 2 full months to correct that potential mistake that they're making there. If they do incur the penalty, the Medicare will send them a letter, and they can appeal that. So they have the ability to appeal that decision that they have that penalty, and they can. There may be extenuating circumstances. I have seen at least one time where it was somebody who had citizenship in 2 countries, and one being India and one being America, and there was some discrepancies that they were able to have that Part B premium waived. Now, the amount, I say Part B premium, Part D penalty waived. The amount of the penalty is 1% of the national base premium for Part D. So if you'll look on page 78 of your Medicare book, and I like to refer to the book, I like to get you as the agent to refer to the book, especially if you're selling face-to-face. This is very important, but it's equally important if you're doing Zoom sales, but when a client can see this, it's very important. Or oftentimes you can send somebody this, you can pull this Medicare You book up as a PDF. So, and you can have your client pull it up as a PDF as well. If they're savvy on the computer, tell them to go pull up this and go to page 78. It tells them what the penalty is right here. So the penalty is listed in this book. All right. That penalty can be, this is important. That penalty is permanent unless the individual qualifies for low-income subsidy, or LIS, extra help, Medicaid, and there may be some other extenuating circumstances where that penalty can be forgiven or waived. So, but most of the time, it's permanent. As long as you have a Medicare drug card, you have that penalty. Again, it's 1% of the national base premium for Part D, and it's cumulative. So it keeps adding up, right? That would be, it's $32.74 in 2020, which would be 32 cents. And they round up, so perhaps 33 cents a month. So if they miss a month or two, it's no big deal. But I'll tell you what happens is when they are supposed to have a 0 premium and they're paying, even if it's just a couple dollars, they get annoyed. And if it's your fault, they're going to get annoyed at you. Okay. If you fail to sign up for Part B coverage, or if your client fails to sign up for Part B coverage, when they're eligible, it's a 10% penalty for each year they are not enrolled. So, that penalty is permanent as well. But that's a much bigger penalty because the premiums are much higher. So those premiums are permanent as well, as long as you have Part B. Now, also, if the person qualifies for some low-income subsidy or Medicaid, they may, in fact, be able to have that Part B penalty waived as well. And oftentimes, the reason somebody does not sign up for Part B is because they have coverage on the job. So what they're going to need, and before you do anything with your client, tell them to talk to their HR department if, in fact, they enroll in Part A because they turn 65. Part A is oftentimes 0 premium. They enroll in Part A, but they waived Part B. Now they're, say, 68 years old. And now they're going to quit their job and they want to enroll in Part B. Well, there's potentially that penalty exists, but they're going to need a letter of credible coverage. So you can get them working on that right up front, so that they can in fact be prepared. Because oftentimes when you tell them later, they get annoyed because a lot of Medicare beneficiaries don't want to do anything. They don't want to do any legwork, and they don't want to go to the HR department. They don't want to make phone calls. So prep them for this. Prepare them to that this is coming. The last penalty, which is the least likely that you will see, is Part A, and that's only incurred when somebody has a premium for Part A and they fail to buy Part A when they're eligible to buy Part A. So you're not going to see that, but it is 10%, and those premiums are quite high. They can be quite high, usually if somebody has a higher income and they feel like maybe they don't need it. But then they realize, well, that is something that they should have or they do need. Well, their penalty is 10% of a bigger number, and they will be applied to the Medicare beneficiary's monthly premium for a period twice the length of the time that they went without Part A coverage. So if they went 2 full years without Part A coverage, they're going to have to pay that penalty for 4 years. So it's pretty simple. And quite frankly, you're not going to see that too often unless you deal with more affluent clients. And but if you're selling Medicare supplements and you're focused on that higher income segment of the population, you're going to see that from time to time. If you're focused on Medicare Advantage and the lower portion of the income spectrum, shall we say, you're not going to see it too often. And that's it. Make sure your clients are protected. Prep them. Give them some forewarning what's going to happen. Oftentimes you'll see people with the Part D say they don't need it because they're not sick. But I am very reluctant to agree with them under any circumstances and it is their decision. And sometimes they make out. If they never get it and they find themselves 10 years later, and now they've never paid a penny for Part D coverage, and they've never really had any medication of any significance other than generic, which they can get for a couple bucks at the grocery store or the Walgreens or CVS. They made out, but I just wouldn't recommend it, and I would advise against it, because what can happen is in the middle of the year, let's say they did their enrollment in January, effective January 1. Now in March or April, they have a medicine that their doctor said they need, and it's very expensive. They have no coverage. And those medicines can be quite significant. So you would leave yourself exposed to perhaps at a minimum losing the confidence of your client, the Medicare beneficiary, in that instance. So make sure you're up to speed on these penalties, the dollar amounts, the length that they have to carry those penalties. It's all in the books here. Their Medicare You book. So I would keep it handy, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.